So the film has been rated for some mild action and violence, some very mild bad language, and some scenes might be considered scary for small children. So I'll go through all of that and I'll try and explain what all that means. So starting with the action violence, most of it through the film, it's very comic book and very cartoonish, and of course nothing really awful happens. You don't see anything kind of bloody or gory, obviously, but there are scenes, and most of them involve falling and crashing. So there's quite a few scenes where you see characters fall from very high up and what appears to be possible certain death because they plummet towards the ground. And, you know, obviously if you have a fear of flying or a fear of falling and certainly a fear of crashing, then, you know, those moments might feel a little bit tense. So you do actually see some crashed aircraft. I mean, these aren't planes. These are, I don't even know how to describe them, but they're kind of like little, almost spaceships, if you like. Delivery drones and that sort of stuff. I don't really know how to describe them, but you do see them crash, and characters are in these things, but they all survive. Everyone's okay. There is one scene at the end though where one character, and it's a bit of a baddie, is trapped inside this robot machine, and eventually he can't get out, but eventually he does crash. And you don't see him fall, you don't see him crash, but you do understand that he is up very, very, very high when he sort of tumbles. So there is an understanding there that whatever happens to him is probably fairly permanent as a result of that fall. So that's kind of most of the violence. The other stuff, there's, you know, characters which are, you know, pursued by wolves. The wolves in this film, I've got to say, are just hilarious. And there's one scene where two characters are hung upside down and it looks like they're going to be eaten. There's talk about the baby being eaten and, you know, those kind of stuff. So there's a little bit of sense of suspense there, but it isn't, I don't know, I don't think it's particularly scary. You know that it's going to end well. You see characters being, you know, hit with objects and all that, you know, slapstick stuff that is fairly common in kids' cartoon films. So that kind of sums it up. The only thing that I would say is possibly would fit into the blood and gore section is that there is a character who has a mangled wing, a broken wing, through most of the film, and sometimes you see it in a sling, and you see him in a little bit of pain. At one point he sort of throws up off screen because of the pain, but that's about it. There's an amazing fight scene that happens. It's quite hilarious because the sound design in it is so clever that you actually want to hold in your laughing. You don't want to laugh out loud. You'll see what I mean when you see the film. So that actually makes it even funnier, the fact that you're not trying to laugh out loud at what's going on the screen. But it's very cleverly done. And in this scene, so two characters are kind of stabbed with a fork. You'll see. And one of them, you see the fork sticking out of this character's chest. So, you know, we might call that violent. But I think that probably, you know, best sums up, you know, the violence and the action. The scariness, I think, really is to do with the falling and also the idea of the unknown, you know, being pursued and not really knowing what's going to happen to one particular baby in particular. So sex and nudity, well, there isn't any. There's actually two really cute scenes where there's a lot of babies in this film and they're all nude, obviously. And there's one scene where you see a baby's bum and it's very cute and squishy. And there's another scene where the two characters are in a sauna together and one of them stands up or a towel blows away. And so the screen very quickly pixelates around the bottom area of the character. It's very cute. Vices, drug use, you know, alcohol, no, obviously nothing like that anywhere during the film. And bad language. This is a bit of a weird one for me because I really didn't flag much. I didn't think there was much concern at language at all. The only things that I noted was that one character says that there is urine because he peed on the seat. But he just mentions it. It's actually quite funny because something a bit scary happened to him just before. So it's humorous. You don't see it. You certainly don't see anything graphic. You don't see it happen. But that's the only thing I can think of that they referred to with bad language. And there's a bit of name calling, you know, through the film. But I don't know. I don't think it's anything too much to worry about. You know, nothing that you kids haven't already heard. I don't think anyway. So yeah, that kind of sums it up. The really beautiful thing about this film though is the themes. There's so much to talk about after seeing this film. Obviously the main theme is family and how different families come together in different ways. That we're all, you know, some of us are from, you know, different origins. We don't necessarily have to have the traditional mum, dad, two kids family makeup. We have stepbrothers and, you know, step family members. We have, you know, kids who are adopted and foster homes and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's really lovely the way it very delicately addresses that. So it's something that you can talk about after the film. And it also means that there's all children should be able to relate to this film. It isn't just the kind of, stereotypical child that is always dealt with in these films, where they seem to come from that traditional mould of family. So that's a really nice thing. Also, I should note that the main protagonist, the little boy in this film, is actually left-handed. So that's a nice touch as well, that, not every child is right-handed. So this film gets that kind of stuff, which is really, really lovely. So my husband said that this is his favourite animation film of the year. So there's heaps and heaps to love in this film. I found one of the things that I really enjoyed coming out of the film was having that conversation about, with my kids, that the same conversation I had with my mum and my grandmother when I was little about the kind of things that they told their kids when they were asked difficult questions. So I'm not saying you need to go and have, that conversation about how babies are made with your kids, but it was really nice to talk about how, babies being delivered by STORKS was something that, my grandmother told my mother and things like that. So we had a conversation about those kind of old wives' tales, old stories that, have been told traditionally in the past. So that was really nice. Anyway, STORKS is a really fabulous film. I really, really, really enjoyed it. My whole family loved it. If you do go and see it, please leave me your thoughts and comments below. Of course, there is a full, more detailed breakdown of the content in the film on the website, which is cinemum.net.